Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Thank you very much for the nice introduction of the panel today. We will talk about digitalization, how it's changing freight forwarding. We have a very exciting panel here together from all angles, from the air freight side, from the road side, with a digital native company, and we have a traditional forwarder and how it is actually impacting him. So I will give you just a quick overview about me that you know who is leading through the discussion today. My name is Ruben. I'm running a network of international freight forwarders, mainly NVOCCs, mainly ocean freight driven. I always say I bring great people and great companies together. That's my job. So if you want to learn more about OceanX and our 127 members in 80 countries, you're very kindly invited to pass by our stand or to join our stand party this afternoon at 4 o'clock, and we can do some exchange there. I'm also having had the opportunity earlier this year to co-author a book with 30 friends from the industry about digital transformation in logistics. And I was in charge of the transformation of freight forwarding part, so that fits a bit into the role that I have here today because we're talking about digitalization in freight forwarding. My main focus at that time was 4 trends that we are seeing. One is technology and how it is changing our way of how we can do things, how we can solve problems for customers, how we can communicate with them, how we can look into efficiency and other things. Another one is the trend towards specialization. When everything becomes transparent, you need to be very good in something in order to differentiate. And we see a bit a trend that it either goes into assets or that it goes into a kind of a 4PL approach where you communicate and where you help your customer more as a digital consultant. Then, of course, we have an omni-channel world. I think we're very lucky to have Zvi Schreiber here from FreightOS who can help us a bit understanding that angle as well, which is really we will buy and sell over different angles. In the past, we did that mainly through salespeople that were doing the selling. We had procurement people that were buying from a salesperson. It was very personal and it was a lot relationship based. There is much more digital instruments coming to this. The speed is accelerating a lot. And then, last but not least, we have virtualization, which probably for all of us in the last 2 years has really shaped and changed the world for us because we spend a lot of time in front of the screens. It doesn't matter anymore where we're doing our job, and that is of course also changing the industry and has been a bit accelerated. So I'm very happy to have 4 great panelists here today, and I would like to give each of them briefly the opportunity to introduce themselves and to explain a bit their background and what they are doing. So we'll start with Michal Grochowski from LOT, from LOT Airlines in Poland. He is the cargo director, and I'll hand over to you. And I already give the presentation to Lukáš, who can later show a bit something what he's doing with DKV. Please.
Good morning, everybody. That's the microphone check. A big echo in this room. It's Michal Grochowski, that's head of cargo at LOT Polish Airlines. Polish Airlines, with ambition to be a leader of Central Eastern Europe. So we are working generally of cargo business here and trying to reconvert a little bit the European setup of the air cargo to move it much more with the focus on the countries like Slovakia, Czech Republic, Poland and Hungary. It's mostly digitization of the process from the airline. I will tell a little bit later about the details. A little bit different than for freight forwarding, but the question all the time is for whom we do our business and what is our goals. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michal. I would like to introduce next Lukáš Ondráček, who is here for DKV Euro service. Please share a bit something with us. I think the technical team has a small slide for you to outline a bit the background.
Thank you for the word. Am I here?
Yeah.
Is the mic
Please.
working? The mic? Okay. I can't hear myself.
No.
Hello? Okay, now it works. Perfect. So I'm very happy to be here in Bratislava, my favorite country, besides Czech Republic, and very proud to be on this stage with these guys here. I'm representing DKV Euro Service. as the European leader for payment on the roads. So, few words about our company. So, what represents us the best is our motto, which says, "You drive, we care." So, whatever the driver needs on the road to get from the point A to the point B, to be paid to get to that second stage, it's our duty, it's our services. So, we represent over 200,000 customers in the European transportation business, and we provide them over 5 million payment means, which are mostly DKV cards and also tolling units. We are located in Germany, close to Düsseldorf, in Ratingen, with 1,300 employees, and the network of DKV consists of more than 160,000 places where you can use the card and pay whatever you need to simply support your mobility.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next one of our panelists is Zvi Schreiber from FreightOS, a digital marketplace and tariff management tool, also operating web cargo on the air freight side, which also has some correlation with our friends from LOT, which we can talk about later. But please, Zvi, introduce yourself a bit. Thank you.
Thanks. Good morning, everyone. I'm Zvi Schreiber. Very excited to be here. I'll tell you just for 2 minutes a little bit about FreightOS and also our subsidiary WebCargo. Our goal is to be the digital booking platform for international freight, both air and ocean. And there's really 2 main parts for that. We have WebCargo, which connects carriers to forwarders, particularly strong with the airlines. We have about 30 airlines who are working with us, but also starting with some ocean liners. And we have about 2,500 freight forwarders who use our platform to do rate management and to do carrier booking. I put just a few logos of ones where I have permission, but there are another 2,000-something freight forwarders who are using our technology to manage their carrier rates and to book with the carriers. And then secondly, we have FreightOS.com, which is a public site which allows shippers, it's like a booking.com for international freight. It allows small shippers mainly to do spot quotes with different freight forwarders to compare prices and book. And that one's a public site. WebCargo is only for professional freight forwarders. I just want to say 2 more things quickly. One is the growth in air bookings has been amazing in the last 2 years. So 2 years ago, we had very little ability to book digitally air cargo. It was all booked by email and phone. But that has grown. I won't give the specific numbers because they're confidential, but you can see the different colors of different airlines. And the growth has been thousands of %. So this has been a very exciting revolution in how air cargo is booked. And then also this has led to a lot of data, and that's the last thing I'll say now. But we've published already for a few years the FreightOS Baltic Index, which is an index which is free and available on our website, which gives the average price of shipping a container on a major trade lane each day. And I'm pleased to announce that next week we will launch also an index for air. So we're going to launch the FreightOS Air Index, which will give the price each week, the average price per kilogram for flying air cargo. Excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zvi. And last but not least, I would like to introduce Roman Stoličný. He's the director of Dachser for the region, and he's the real freight forwarder here in the room today, and on the panel, and we're excited to hear from you as well. Please.
Thank you, Ruben. So my name is Roman Stoličný. I am the managing director of Dachser Slovakia, but also with the regional responsibility for Southeast Europe. We are part of the 42 countries which are led by Dachser, German-based private family-owned company, and located on 42 countries, more than 31,000 employees, roughly 6 billion euro turnover, 400 subsidiaries and own branches, so quite well international established. Thanks to be here also and to speak about the really exciting things of digitalization and the data moving world now, which belongs also to suppliers, to providers, but also to logistic providers, which are the significant part of this chain.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, gentlemen, for your introductions. I would like to start with really looking a bit back first. We are talking about digitalization since many years. There's probably have been different waves of digitalization when we look at it, with the internet age and then a bit later. But I would say we look a bit at the last 5 years, and I would like to hear a bit your views on what you think has changed and how has it really impacted your business. And maybe, Roman, we can start with you, because it's a very traditional company that has always been very close to its customers. And how has digitalization changed your business?
It's very interesting, especially when you consider some technology cycle. And there are coming the really big exciting moments when you have a lot of digital features available. Then it's coming to falling down a little bit of the valley of disappointment that everybody expects that, wow, it will be great. And then we'll start the real mission of digitalization, using the technology like we have right now, the smart applications, the mobiles, the internet network, TCP/IP protocols. Yes, we are also talking about cryptocurrency and so on, but we are now really more focused for the digital interests which make the real benefits for the organization. These hype trends and the curves should be tested by times, and this cycle takes 2-3 years when you really see what it makes sense and to use it. But what is clear, this cycle is faster and faster, and new trends are coming to our, let's say, digital world. Okay.
Do you have maybe one example inside your organization where you think something has digital has changed, a certain thing where you interact with the customer, or what's your?
Yeah, this is really the good question, because nearly every month it's coming something new. But start from the history. We use the fax, telefax first, then was coming the barcodes 30-40 years ago, then our QR codes, the other carriers of the digital message there. And today we are talking about the testing phase of the visual analytics, which are changing the visual information to data form, transferring to daily operation data, analyzing them by predictive analysis using the quantum technology, and for the future to see really planning and the operational planning, which has to be based by the completely new technology, because current hardware assets to make the multiplicator of this data and creating the new one, then we have to think about the quantum technology as well, because this world of data will grow. And for future and customer-oriented data, the biggest challenge will be also the front-end environment, that data could be readable and understandable and useful for our customer.
Okay, thank you. I think we come back to data at a later point as well, because there is an interesting angle to this too. I would like to go over to Michal to look a bit at the air freight side of things. How have things developed? For me, my background is on ocean, and we're very slow because we didn't have standards, and air freight has always been better digitalized, has a much simpler tariff structure, and has been far ahead in many ways. So what do you think has changed most, and also in your way, how as an airline you interact with freight forwarders?
Oh yes, but give me 5 minutes minimum to explain.
Yes, no problem.
As airline perspective, is as a kind of interesting and much more deeper than the people from the other business could understand. As myself, I'm coming from freight forwarding business, and I usually didn't know 5 years ago what the challenge from digitalization and what the challenge is waiting in the airline. We have to let's say to stay focused on two very important areas, which are on the same balance or equal balance. As the one, it is an interface with the freight forwarders, our customers, and the second is the digitalization with all these civil aviation authorities and the customs. And so internal and external. External, usually the people may usually think that airlines provide a track and trace, that's it. That's not. It's a very basic thinking. Of course, some freight forwarders, they have a very developed internal system that want to be communicate with the airline applications and everything around. From the airline perspective, the most challenging situation is the rules which are changing over the world. Ocean freight, for example, is more simple because the containers, they are traveling on open areas, means the sea which not belongs to somebody. We fly above the countries and the territories with their own rules. So to be correct with the changing environment is a very challenging. I'll give you an example. LOT Polish Airlines is the first airline in Europe which implemented digital standards for the checking dangerous goods. As every year, dangerous goods definition is changing. So it's a very, it's a very challenging. Same for example, for the customs. Yesterday, that was a very interesting panel here related to e-commerce and the blockchain. So for this one, every single freight forwarder is thinking or doing e-commerce. It's a very challenging how to cooperate and collaborate with customs officers, because this is the most coming challenge for everybody. The answer is looking into the systems of a digital world. But very simple, coming to the freight forwarding exchange. The track and trace for the airline is more complicated because we are doing business together with also different airlines, based on interline, and also the road feeder service providers. To complete the data from all of them is a very challenging, because everybody expects for the very low rates. It means that the providers for the road feeder service couldn't be, let's say, on the stage like a NASA or something. So this is challenging. Another area, like for example, the FreightOS is getting, is the sales and all this area which is related to contacts to go through digital way. Has very, very good way to do that, but we still are working in a business to business. It's maybe not the freight forwarding world, which is exactly very small. But the people, just the simple people, they think that the airlines or freight forwarders, they are doing business for the people who are walking on the streets. It's not true. This is B2B. Digitalization must go follow expectations, because the volume is growing, because the rules are changing. We go for that, for all that rules to pass, absolutely optimized service and deliver the best service. But we cannot avoid, let's say, the personal contacts. Last 4 years, 5 years, and especially the COVID-19 pandemic time, where the people were limited in the personal contacts, show us that the digital world is absolutely something that we have to go follow. That's we, for example, as LOT Polish Airlines, we are thinking about the changing our operational system to buy the platform who is ready today with 100% to pass actual demand. Later on, we would like to add and develop, because the current systems, as we have, for example, they are on ongoing development. Nobody remember what was the basic platform. We have to go for the new one.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michal. I mean, you mentioned one very important thing, I think, is also this, that we are in a business-to-business world. There is often these analogies being made between consumer examples. Huh? I mean, if we come later to see in the marketplace, everybody talks about Booking.com or being Expedia or whatever. We live in a world where we do business-to-business, and the customer is different. Huh? It's a company, the decisions are made on a different level. Maybe you want to explore a bit on that, Zvi, and because he already mentioned FreightOS, so I think it's the ball is in your park now.
Well, yeah. First of all, I think, Ruben, that's partly true. I mean, yes, business to business is different, but the person you're working with is still a human being.
Yeah.
And even if they're at work, you know, they're at home, they watch Netflix and they shop on Amazon, and when they come to work, more and more they expect the same experience, especially if they're younger and they grew up with a smartphone. So I think there are some differences, but there's still the same people with the same, and they still prefer, the younger people, also at work, still prefer to use the web and not to have a phone call. And they don't want to play golf with you. They want to. So, you know, we're seeing significant, at last, we're seeing this industry catching up with digitalization. I'll mention quickly 3 areas maybe. One, which is the easiest, is the back office. So freight forwarders are adopting TMSs, transportation management systems, for many years already, to make the back office more efficient, and they are adopting rate management systems like ours and others. So the back office is becoming software. You don't see any more freight forwarders with lots and lots of papers. That's going away quickly. So that's the first thing, and that's the easiest.
Definitely.
But then we talk about the actual digital booking, online transactions, and for the shippers that is coming in, but I would say so far only for small shippers. So the SME importers and exporters, they come to our website or to another website, they are willing to book freight online or on their phone. We're seeing that every day, hundreds of times. So that's happened. Still, and here maybe you're right, the enterprises have not yet adopted that. Maybe they will, but they're not yet. And then if I talk about the freight forwarders booking with the carriers, so on ocean we haven't seen much digitization yet, although I think we will. But like I said in the introduction, on air, there's been an amazing revolution where freight forwarders, it surprised me. I mean, I've been at the forefront of this, but I've been amazed how quickly freight forwarders have been switching to digital booking of air cargo. So that's been very exciting.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, on this interfacing, maybe one comment my side, I still see this focus on interfaces, you know, and there is maybe the difference in B2B. As a business, I already have a system, and I want my system to communicate with your system. I don't want somebody having a manual interface typing it in, because in a consumer world, yes, the consumer doesn't have a system, but as a company I have. I would like to switch a bit to the road side of things. I mean, Lukáš is from DKV. Most of you probably know it's started as a card provider in the trucking business, with the card in the pocket of every trucker, and now this is also changing, and it becomes an app that is in the pocket of every trucker, and of course it's innovating. And how have you seen the last 5 years? Where are we? How has the journey been?
You know, this was an interesting question. I was thinking about what was the main accelerator, and I have to admit that one of the biggest accelerator was the COVID-19, for sure, because, you know, before the COVID, we were meeting physical to talk digital. Now we're meeting digital to talk digital, and that's a different story. And as an example from our company, we were able during COVID to buy companies, just meeting on Teams and signing documents using DocuSign. And these tools would never been used before. We would have to make several physical meetings, then to use papers, printers, everything. So that's a complete game changer. As I'm representing mostly the carriers here, I should state about the market itself. So the carrier market in Europe is highly fragmented. It's mainly occupied by very small companies with just single cars. And for those companies, digitalization is a future still. So there is a big potential. So if I would speak about what was changing in digitalization for these companies, not a lot. I have to go to the basics. So first thing is kind of data exchange. So these companies are used to get invoices, for example, in some digital form. Most of them by PDF, still as an attachment. We are working on to get them some CSV files, going to some APIs, going to some EDI processes. But these two last are still just valid for the XL companies. All the small ones still not ready for use any data interchange. That's the situation with them. But definitely the data exchange is much better than 5 years ago. The next thing is, for example, the route planning. With the actual tools we have, the carriers can plan their routes based on the fuel price, based on the distance they need to fuel in, based on the tolling rates, based on the traffic, based on the estimated time of arrival. And this is all integrated in some applications which are, let's say, available for the truckers or for dispatchers. So maybe small things, but again, for a highly fragmented market of European carriers, some steps in front.
For sure, yeah, no. And it's also, I think, if we take the marketplace angle again, there is a lot of trucking marketplaces now in Europe and also in the US, which more or less try to. I always say it's a bit easier in the trucking place because you don't take anything away from anyone. You actually fight the empty run, you know, and you actually try to minimize and optimize that space. So there's a lot of activity on the trucking side. I think that's also when you buy and use your road capacity in Dachser. What do? You also you use digital marketplaces for that, or you are still traditionally managing your fleet?
We do a little bit about, so it means to make the really only data freight related. Then you came to the question about the capacities. But when you have the system, like it's in airline business, you have to provide the services if there is available the capacity or not. So our network is coming roughly in Europe from 300 branches, and daily we operate 10,000 trucks in network system. So it's, let's say, the airline on the wheels. And when you have the grouped shipments, you have no prediction what will happen tomorrow with your customers. To have the standardized principle for the planning, it's nice, this is long-term perspective, but very dynamic in hours development should be adapted. In this case, we are going on the way of predictive analysis. So we collect all the data from all the branches, from all our customers, transferring in digital form and provide it like the weather forecast on hourly, daily or weekly basis, how we can develop our organization to be able to use available capacity on the market, to use the efficient part of this utilization, because this is, everything is cost effective, but to keep and guarantee the quality service like it's agreed. And this is a big challenge. So with the freight communication, data freight communication, you are depending on the market. So in this process, we integrated our own assets as well. And somebody as a freight forwarder is the direct face to customer. So from carrier, we collect the data, from customer, we collect the data, we consolidate them, and we open also for every participant to take adaptable data structure back for their supply chain management planning. So we go question to create, but also to buy and to create the ideal combination.
Okay. So is this data already helping your people proactively when it's you mentioned groupage as an example, that it tells them, hey, this and this customer is still missing for tomorrow, and to proactively help you to pull cargo into your system as well?
Absolutely, yes, because in this case, customers can make their own supply chain management planning, and the relation between consignor and consignee, it's communicated beside of our network, but then we are quite stable part of this chain.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I would like to come back to marketplaces quickly. The story there is also we see more and more shippers adopting their own kind of TMS systems and ending up in a situation where they more or less have their private marketplace, where all their key vendors are connected to them and where they can more or less do biddings and manage in a standardized process for themselves. And for FreightOS as a company, I've been watching for a long time. We were in my earlier life one of the early adopters. It was always a public solution and a public marketplace. How do you see this call it a TMS race or whatever that is happening there? Which people will buy publicly, which people will make their own solutions and things like that?
Yeah. Well, when you say that FreightOS is always public, the part that you see is public.
Yes.
But there is plenty of private data. Most of the data in our system is private.
Okay.
So, yes, small shippers will just use our website as it is. But we do work with some very large enterprises. Not all of them have got permission to say, but I can mention Zara, Inditex, I can mention Cisco Foods, which is a Fortune 100 company. So we do have some very big enterprises using our system as well. And as you would expect, they have a lot of private rates, which they put in the system and no one else sees. So it's kind of like a private marketplace. But I think what's interesting is that over time, the difference between private and public is getting less and less. So what these enterprises like to do, they like to have their private rate where they do a tender for the year and they negotiate a rate. But then they also want to keep an eye on the public market because sometimes it's cheaper or there's better capacity. And over the years, we see slowly, less and less fixed price tenders and more spot. And the market's becoming more democratic and more equal. Still, there's plenty of private. And I think the thing which really has... That was true before COVID. And then during COVID, it's much more so because, you know, basically right now the ocean liners and the airlines, they're taking all the private, the spot market is very high. So they're taking all the private contracts and ripping them up, except they're digital, but virtually ripping, you know, putting it in the trash can on the computer because they get much more in the spot market. So I think COVID, and also things are changing so quickly. Before COVID, the airlines, they had more or less their summer schedule and their winter schedule, you know. Now schedules are changing every day. So it's become much more dynamic. and the gap between, you know, private fixed price and spot is even becoming less and less, I would say.
And you just played me a very nice ball with ripping up paper, because we can try it a bit into this paperless discussion and into this whole efficiency thing. And of course, we go back to the airline, we go back to Michal, where I see, you know, in ocean freight, we're still talking about EBLs, and it's 2021 by now. Okay, we've been talking about that in 1999 as well. So in the airlines, you're a bit further ahead. The e-airway bill is already very much adopted, and I think COVID has pushed it further. I don't know, what's the e-airway bill adoption rate in a lot of airlines now?
You know, it's a much more complicated story about the airlines, because the background to be considered for the airline is global representation, really global representation. We have to remember that different countries, different continents, they have different rules. Digitalization in general is getting to create the world more universal to everybody. But the local rules around the world, they are not universal. Because we have to remember about this one. As for example, mentioned the e-bookings and electronic airway bills in some part of the world, that will be very welcome. In a different part of the world, with, for example, very demanding customs, like in India or Mexico or South America, that will be a totally different story. The world is not universal. I think that with digitalization, we're trying to answer for the questions, for what you're doing that. So I think that we want to make our life easier and to offer very quality answer for any questions coming from our customers. Again, it's what happened the last 2 years, because the airline, they have a lack capacity on the market versus huge demand. We are here in Bratislava as a part of developing world still compared to the Western Europe. This is our time, exactly, time of our countries to boost a little bit, to catch the gap between infrastructure, between the meaning of the freight forwarding on the Western Europe, and to catch the gap here. I believe in that. But behind it is also the, let's say, the policy and the strategy. We as a Polish Airlines, we want to be #1 here. We are #5 in the region, #1 in Poland, of course, but #5 in the region, because the bigger airlines are operating here. But why they are operating here and what is the target for them and the strategy is different than ours, completely different. So in case of my strategic plans, for example, I still have to have the block space agreements, and still would like, that is tricky, of course, don't get me wrong, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to get the control on the rates and also on our loyalty of the partnership with some of them. So the part of our capacity is sold out in a solid block space agreement, but the other part is coming on a free market. However, it's a very, very tricky here to, for example, go today. Maybe the future is different, but today, with the open spot at the capacity, whoever pay me better or will be faster is getting capacity. This is the very, very tricky way today, especially in our part of Europe. So today, my answer will be no, I don't agree for the situation that the 50% of my capacity is going for the universal market, and whoever is my customer can be, let's say, on the same position or equal position to others. No way. It is because in some cases, even on an ad hoc basis, we represent, or our customers represent part of global preferred carrier program, for example. I have to respect that. In the same time, I have products, very, very different products for pharmaceuticals, for the live animals, general cargo 3 services, and much more developed. Today, the digitalization is giving us more comfort. Even the comfort is coming from internal rules. All these aviation authorities, IATA, EASA, and others. But for the customers, we have to be very, extremely careful to not punish anyone, to not make an impression that the customer, which is very loyal many years, will say, hey, you're going not our way, we don't like you anymore. I don't agree for that. So you know it's important.
It's a story that the ocean carriers have been dealing with since many years as well. Of course, in an up cycle you want to have a lot of spot cargo, and in a down cycle you want to have a lot of long-term commitments, and you always want to play it. But it's not a tap of water you can turn on and off, and it's an asset-heavy industry. You buy a plane for 20 plus years. You need to think about your customer relationship in a similar way.
Yes, Ruben, you know that. You have to respect, and you have to respect your customers. And it is the ongoing process in a B2B that whoever is loyal for you in the good times couldn't be refused in the bad times, should be prized for his loyalty, for the good collaboration, and working, for example, with also digitalization in exchanging data between his own system and our system. It is a lot. I'd like to also tell something, maybe you have a later question about that, so stop me, please.
I have one later.
Because in this digitalization from the airline perspective, that could be interesting for you. It's innovations, because the innovation coming from the system and exchange data is obvious. Everybody knows that it's happening. It's a very nice example. We're going to implement, for example, very fast way, very innovative system, for example, to measure in the 3D dimensions of the cargo. Because we, as most of the airlines, we are using the Praetors, means passenger planes in all cargo operations. Means some cartons are going on seats. And we are using Boeing fleet, for example, and also Airbus. They have their own rules inside, and they measure what is allowed, what is not, because of construction of the plane inside. So the dimensions must be correct, the weight by the single pieces. A lot of companies, sometimes with a big number of packages, I wouldn't say ignore, but you know that they are not so straight with the data that they provide, that the cartons with the dimensions of the packages or the pallets are exactly in the same dimensions. So you can imagine, for example, that we can solve it very, very fast to install on the glasses small camera, an application that one shot, even you don't do nothing. Some worker or the clerk is watching for the carton, and the data is automatically transferred and verified the airway bill several times. This innovation is coming right now. It's very clever. I really love it. That's the first. Second one, I mentioned about the dangerous goods. What we did 2 years ago, that was 2 years ago, when we implemented digitalization with the verification dangerous goods. Safety in airline business is extremely important. This is top important. Before, in the front, and the money are behind. The safety is number one. So what we did is implemented the digitalization of verification dangerous goods. Dangerous good is a dry ice, for example, everything. We have a system, and our people with the tablets, they're coming to the terminal, for example, when the shipments signed and marked by dangerous goods are coming, and they are very simple, scanning the labels, and they know everything. Shipper's declarations is verified, and we cut the time for verification, sometimes from 2 hours to 5 minutes. This is digitalization.
Yeah, of course.
Very good answer for the next one, and I promise this will be the last, but important and for sure interesting, is military freight or dual use, because this is something that we cannot ignore in our business in the international freight forwarding. We are watching for that as well to digitalize the process, because as I mentioned, the different parts of the world, they have their own rules. You cannot, for example, fly above, I don't know, Afghanistan or some countries with a dual use or military freight without a prior notice or something. So we are working right now on a digitalization of this process to verify on the total route what is allowed, what is not allowed. Because it is not wrong to say to the customer, sorry, it is your business. We respect them. We are not flying because we recognize immediately that you would make a mistake, and we do.
Yes, exactly. I mean, compliance is a big subject for everybody.
Absolutely.
And I think to maybe bring it a bit back to this paper subject, I mean, there was a mentioning in, I think, Germany during the elections, where they said very clearly, if we forbid paper in administrative processes, we can nurture digitalization. That's why I would like to bring it back to Lukas on, we have now Germany approving the ECMR finally, I think a 10-year process to get there. Huh? And how do you see that? How will that impact the road business?
First of all, I need to admit that what's going on in terms of digitalization in air cargo, it's very interesting for us, and in many means the freight transportation could simply just follow what's going on there, because that's a good example. So with ECMR, I mean, how many actually? 11 plus 7 countries adopted or approved the documentation, but I mean, onboarding of Germany is important part, because especially for our region, going to Germany is the most of the business. So I believe now in bright future. Until now, it was not really heavily used in our region, but now it should be. DKV thinks about it because we have our own telematic solution. So of course, we need to integrate whatever ECMR brings to those telematic solutions to provide our customers a tool to share these documents with the driver, with the shippers, with forwarders, with anyone in that chain.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Proof of delivery, everything that is required, right?
First tests we received are very positive, so yeah.
Okay.
This should accelerate the usage of ECMR, Germany being on board.
Okay, thank you. I'm continuing with another question in a moment. I would just like to remind everybody in the audience, online and offline, we have an opportunity to use Slido here as well. So if you would like to, you can inject your own questions in a moment, and we will pick them up, and we will ask the panel to come to them. But first of all, I would like to come back to a bit of more traditional thing. Our business in the end is trust. I always say forwarding is trust and confidence. People give us their cargo, and we take care of it. I mean, if they sell a product and if it doesn't get delivered, the sale falls through. So it's really a very personal business, it's a very people's business, and maybe that's a question for Roman also. How do you see things are changing? I mean, we need these personal relationships. On the other hand, we interact more and more digitally. Now, of course, also supercharged with COVID, we more or less end up only having to communicate virtually, which in a sales perspective probably is difficult, or has been difficult for a lot of us, as we are more people's people in this kind of industry. So please elaborate a bit how you see this happening.
What we recognize is a lot about the change management. So we have to change the mindset of people to digital mindset. It was mentioned here, still we stay human, so no discussion, there will be no robots. I can't guarantee in the next century, but okay. But what we can see, people would like to be rid of the daily systematic work, which is only time consuming. We talk about the documentation. They are the scanning, they are the data transfer. Not every industry is prepared, but then the solution covers also scanned the text forms, transferring to data structure, sharing the information. That should be also self-learning machines who can continuously repeat this simple work which was done by humans. And then we have some kind of the structure. But how to share with the human beings back? So this is one of the challenge, because nobody likes to get the email with the 6 terabytes data every morning. So these customer front ends, when they can pick up the data, what they need, it's very important part. And to be one of the most digital logistic provider, then we need also the interference of the 3 big worlds. Cyber world, socio world, and physical work. So if all these 3 information or the solution will work as a one complex world, then still humans will be able to use the data for their daily work. We will not lose interactions between personalities, but the world and the life around us, which generate a lot of terabytes, gigabytes of the data from every corner, from personal life, from business life, and not to overload the human brain, then we need some stable environment. yes, that will be repetitive action when you need just one per time, then this machine learning can make the analysis and to evaluate it and provide you only information which is useful in the right time, in the right moment, which could be in 10 seconds old. Oh. So I think this will be the challenge for future, still to stay the human, to use all the availabilities which we have from the data structure, come from the, let's say, milestone data collection to daily life collection, which is challenging. Yeah. And, but there are, like we implemented already the telematics system, which could be used on air freight, in airline, in road transportation, and adapted to our internal process orientation or information flow to customer if they need it. So this will be very interesting part for the next future.
But the data will also be playing an important role to consult you, to give it as a tool to your employees to consult the customers better, right? I mean, in that sense, to help them to optimize their supply chains.
And this we would like not to give only to our employees and then to forward to customer, immediately to be open for customer. They can grab this data when they want it and in how conditions they would like to have it. And we would like to stop this interface carrier, forwarder, customer, and whole supply chain. We would like to have the one data structure which will be available for everybody who will need it. And all the carriers, all these interfaces will be the part of this one big digital world. For sure, customer, they have to have access to their own data. And then is another discussion, security, availability of data, and so on, which could be quite critical due to very fast development. And that could be our mission also, to be one of the most digitalized provider, to provide also this front-end solution for customers, for our suppliers also, and from our internal processes, and should be intelligent combination of the skilled people, available digital level, new technologies, innovation. So whole this cosmos of this innovation will influence the further development.
Okay. Yeah, I would like to bring it to Zvi, because you are the digital native on the panel. So you had this kind of digital interaction with the customer from the very beginning. And how do you see that in this trust business? Huh?
Yeah, I think like Roman just said, it's all about data in the end. And over time, data replaces trust and relationship. So if we start on a personal level, let's say, I booked a hotel here in Bratislava on booking.com. Now, I've actually got a couple of friends who've been to Bratislava, and I trust them. I could have asked them, which hotel do you recommend? But I didn't even ask, because I would just get their anecdotal recommendation. I go to booking.com, I see an average of 1,000 reviews. I trust it much more, I trust this data much more than the relationship, actually. So in my personal life, I've learned, the same if I choose a seller on Amazon or on eBay or on Alibaba, so in my personal life, I've learned that data, a significant data set, is more reliable than a trust and relationship. And I think that people are gradually learning that in B2B as well. And that's why we are seeing more and more that a shipper will choose a freight forwarder based on data, that a freight forwarder will choose a carrier based on data. Of course, there are still plenty of relationships and trust and long-term contracts, but we're seeing more and more a move to a dynamic data-based marketplace.
Okay. Yeah, I'm still a romantic. I'm trusting trust. So I mean, of course, data plays a role, and I think all these ratings are very important because they add a qualitative measurement to service. In the past, some people, it would be anecdotal, as you say. You would say, I have a good experience with this forwarder, I have a good experience with that forwarder. So having this kind of proof of these 1,000 people saying this is a 5-star forwarder is, of course, something that helps the customer to make the decision. But in the end, the buyer, I think this comes back to this B2C and B2B, and maybe that's also something where Michal wants to contribute in a moment, where the point is really the decision maker is actually who? The decision maker is an employee, and that makes decisions on behalf of the company. And of course, in the end, he puts his job on the line by the vendor that he picks. So it remains a certain kind of trust function in there, because if he picks the wrong vendor, and if he later says, I picked him because he had a good rating on a marketplace, he still is out of a job if he makes a wrong choice, right? I don't know, would you like to chip something in on the because the air freight is already very digital in that sense, huh?
Yes, that's it's a very, very wide open question, exactly. And I'm thinking all the time about these questions about universal world and the digitalization, about the offers for the ad hocs and everything. Potentially, the people around here, they are representing the freight forwarding world. I think that the discussion about the digitalization is going to the place when all these people should go on, and the freight forwarding should be, let's say, with no emotions, just electronic. It's a tricky. Probably the question like this will come to the air very fast. But remember about very one important thing. One is the e-commerce, and this is really a different business than the typical freight forwarding. Because you are asking if freight forwarding will be gone. I say no. No, because to manage the supply chain with a global role for producers, or very complicated supply chain divided between the, let's say, the competitive countries to them, or some multinational projects, I don't know, production of the jet engines, computers, or something like this, with the vendors number hundreds of them to produce one computer or something like this. I think this will never go. And this must have the freight forwarders behind. Freight forwarders with the contacts, freight forwarders which will be with emotions and the relations to consume, for example, time like today, when the capacity is very limited and somebody must have this capacity. Who will get it? Some unknown freight forwarder, digital freight forwarder? I don't think so. Myself, I will not give my very valuable capacity to something unknown with no relations, because that's the last one, very tricky. Really, don't get me wrong, it's not against the freighters or you. But the platforms for digitalization will take the role of the sales of the freight forwarders to the shipper. This is the direction, because what the digital platform in case of sales are doing, they are getting off all these relations and they are offering capacity for money. To whom? To everybody who can connect to the platform. It is maybe in 2019, when that was more capacity on the market than demand, that would work. But you know that during the years, I'm absolutely convinced that this is a little different world, because the supply chain, again, the countries and this planet is not universal world. It's a world with a very local rules, different than others, with very typical for themselves, let's say, qualifications, not available to others, with the specifications. Slovakia, we are in Bratislava, the heart of the automotive for Visegrad countries, yes? In Slovakia, we don't have so many, for example, pharmaceuticals or other like this, or the aerospace business. This is most automotive. This is directed for some, this direction is moving us to some specialities. It is pushing for also for the local authorities, for the tax offices, for understanding customs and something. Different country, which is on north, is different with the rules, with approaching. So I think that we have to somehow divide the world, universal world, which is coming on the platform and directed for a single person, B2C, like Amazon, Alibaba, or others, of typical freight forwarding, which have to deliver competitive model of supply chain and control. From another angle, I know few examples that the best freight forwarders, it is not only my opinion, they are the most, I know the two companies, one is registered in Switzerland and one in the States. They have hundreds own IT guys inside. They are not buying, they are creating the world around. And they are the best in the industry, but they are not trying, this one registered in Switzerland is #1 in the ocean freight, so you know them perfectly. So they are not trying to convince the world to be of no emotions, absolutely not. They are trying to make their life easier and deliver let's say, the quality data to the customers. I think that there's a lot of questions that we don't answer today fully, but the areas and the world of that is more deeper than we can imagine.
Okay. I would like to bring data into the question because we have Zvi here. It's very easy. Customers on FreightOS and on web cargo, they can sort. They can sort by price, they can sort by transit time, by whatever they want. What do people actually sort by? Do they always go for the cheapest? Do we have a race to the bottom when we enter a marketplace? Or do people go for transit time? Or what's the percentages? You have a few years of data.
Yeah.
What's your
that's
learning?
a great question. So we have, there are four parameters, basically: price, transit time, service reputation, and carbon footprint. And of course, different buyers are different, but overall, that's more or less the order. So price is the most significant, but it's not the only significant thing.
Okay.
Then transit time. So sometimes people will pay more to have it quicker.
Okay.
And then service, which makes a big difference if it's extreme. So if you've got 5 stars or 4 stars, it doesn't make that much difference. But if you've got 2 stars, people will not use you at any price. So the extremes of service make a big difference. But people won't pay much more for 5-star than 4-star, most people. So.
Okay.
And then, carbon footprint, still very few shippers are choosing by that, but hopefully it will become more because, and also big shippers now, enterprises are required to track more and more, they're getting required to track their carbon footprint, not just in-house, but their supply chain carbon footprint.
Okay.
So I hope and believe that people will pay more and more attention to this.
Especially those that are consumer-driven, where their buyers are more or less, they want to see that. I would quickly have a look at Christina and whether she has anything on Slido for us. Seems the audience has not been doing their job and there are not many questions on Slido, so I have more questions to ask myself. This is also good. Yeah, I mean, maybe this is a good thing to pick up as well. If we bring technology in correspondence with this green wave, I always say this is the second or third green wave. The last one was probably before the financial crisis, and then suddenly everybody had other problems and wasn't thinking anymore about going very green. How do you see that? Is there already people willing to pay for green, and are they really going to accept premium solutions in order to have less CO2 or something, Roman, in your interaction with customers?
For sure there is the clear, direct expectation.
Okay.
More and more it's now marketing, publicity, PR, it's visible in our world that the situation, and we feel it by ourselves, fires, tornadoes in the areas where never been, this is everything related to climate changes. And, but how to do it? They are the green technologies, carbon footprints, monitorings, and so on. There are some things just to increase the capacity of the transport mode, and then you reduce the number of trucks on the streets. But they are also the first cities which, from whatever reason, their location, geographical location, or what, are expecting from providers to do something which is human related. We are running now the 10 areas, starting from Stuttgart up to Prague, with the big metropolis like the Paris, when a lot of emissions are on the area, with the electric deliveries, starting with the bigger truck, smaller truck, up to the e-bike, the deliveries on the pedestrian zones, which are industrial oriented. So if we want or not, this trend is here. And if customers like to pay it, they have to provide satisfaction their customers. So they are forced also to follow this trend. Yes, they will ask providers, and providers has also responsibility to the other environment, that we are really the part of this green world. So the new steps in technologies, hopefully the batteries life will be developed. We are talking about the hydrogen cells, which could be the next steps also, and which are related to industrial. For the customer market will be something different, but I guess till 2030 and latest 2050 we will really see a lot of changes in our roads.
Thank you. Lukáš, on the road planning and route planning side, you have this metric as well. Huh? It's a very important part for...
It's a big topic for us as well. You know, we as DKV, we represent diesel in the past, that's for sure, and we have quite a big ambitious green topics in front of us. So in actual time, DKV goes charging, DKV goes LNG, DKV goes hydrogen, DKV goes CNG, DKV goes biodiesel, and all the stuff we want to implement to allow our customers to pay for these fuels, because they will need it. Sooner or later, they will need it. Question is if they will like to do it or they will have to do it. I believe the second, because they all are in the cost everyday operations, fragmented markets, small companies, manual processes, they will be forced to do it. But for sure, this will happen.
But will it be driven by customer demand or will it be driven by regulation? Where do you see the...
Both. I can see both, but you know, the regulation will be a big lever, but also the customer demand, it's increasing. We can see it on the bigger international companies. DKV has a plan to become CO2 positive in next year.
Okay.
Our offices. That's a big plan. So, you know, these things are happening all over Europe. And of course, then these companies will select always carriers who will follow the same strategy as we do. Yeah.
It's a very interesting subject. I mean, I work with students sometimes, and they always bring that as the first argument. They say if it needs to be an innovation in something, it needs to be green. Huh? But
one more point just to add, because based on the analysis we have, there is up to 40% of free space unused in trucks every day on the roads, and that's a potential for all of us. I mean, that's money, that's environment, that's everything inside. Just to make this more efficient and fill it in by additional goods using any marketplaces, any other platforms, big potential for everybody.
It's an efficiency challenge for any transport means. Air freight has the same. If the plane is full, the CO2 for each of the packages goes down, and that helps. And you have a lot on the groupage side now where people are pushing that subject. What I just sometimes have the feeling is the customer would like to have it cheap and then green on top. He's not really willing to pay for the cream, okay? He's expecting the cappuccino comes with cream and he doesn't have to pay for that extra. Huh? Yeah, please.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. Everyone talks about green, but nobody wants to pay for it. There's also a big geographical divide. So Europe is relatively aware, and still people don't want to pay for it. In America, till January, nobody had even heard of global warming and climate change. There was just very low awareness. Now with the new president, the awareness is increasing. Asia was also behind. But actually, if you think in Europe, people aren't willing to pay, it's even worse in other parts of the world. I think the answer is, in the end, people will not many people will voluntarily pay for carbon offsets. And I think regulation is not really the right way. But the right way is just to price things correctly. So right now, emitting CO2 into the atmosphere is for free. And all we have to do is charge a real cost of what it costs the world to emit CO2, and then that will automatically get baked into the price. And then people will buy the product which is more green because it's cheaper, because the cost of CO2 emissions is actually... so it's a tax or a...
But it also adds an additional dimension. I mean, if I put my freight forwarder hat on and say, okay, anything that adds complexity to the solution that I provide to the customer is also letting me thrive. Huh? He needs more consulting, he needs more help to understand. So if I now have the tech side of things where I help my customer to provide visibility solutions, to be it a multitude of them, and on the other hand, I'm also helping on the green side, how can we reduce, how can we help you to achieve your CO2 target for your company, then I'm actually, my package is becoming bigger. Huh? And I think this is where also freight forwarding can add more value thanks to these elements. Huh?
Yeah, I have to say I really agree with you, because everybody likes to have it. I like this cappuccino story. Hopefully it's not patented.
No. Feel free to reuse anything.
And in the end will be just a part of the costs. And to sell it like this is the extra because we would like to be green and so on, this will be obligation or normal expectation. And everyone, if it's the truck producer or airline producer, ship producer, will integrate to their price. Other forwarder will integrate in their price. Always there will be some kind of optimization, but in the end, final customer will pay it as the price of the final product. And then this green approach will be standard. But significant task is really by the governmental approach.
Okay.
And Europe will not rescue the world. That should be really the global intensive direction.
Okay. So I mean, to maybe as a closing note for our round, I would like to look a bit into where the future is going. Huh? I mean, what do you think is the hottest thing coming in the next few years on the digital side of things? Huh? I always have a bit this vision where I say we will reach a plateau. Sorry. Where we will reach a plateau probably, where everybody will have more or less the same kind of technology tools available, and then it will no longer be that much of a factor, because everybody will be able to optimize their efficiency. If I have a customer-facing tool and somebody has a new feature, then I can have that feature tomorrow, and everybody has more or less the same kind of things, and it becomes less of a differentiator in the market. I don't know, where do you in each of your fields see what is the hottest thing coming to air freight, for example, in digital in the next 2 years?
For sure, the e-commerce is a kind of, let's say, the rabbit, which is coming on the front row and showing the demand from the digitalization. Behind that, I will a little bit convert your question, because that was too simple to answer you. But what is behind? Digitalization in the communication between the systems and the communication between these companies, their customers and executors. It's obvious that will happen, but follow that from the airline perspective. It must go the regulations, but not only regulations who punish, for example, for the green world or something. Just in my opinion, so far in my experiences, nobody is willing to pay for the green. This is only marketing, blah blah blah. Sorry for that, but this is the brutal truth. The marketing is fine with the green stuff, but nobody is allowed to pay. It's, during my 4 years in this industry, I've never been asked by anyone who wants to buy the capacity from me about the green stuff. Never, ever. And believe me, I'm participating in the discussion on the top level with our customers. Yes, few times I received the situation that the question were coming from the marketing of their companies, because they want to show up that, oh, we are green. In the land transportation, probably it is more easier, because all these regulations for Euro 5, 7, 8, 10, 11, that would coming for that. My car is also only 2 liters engines. Okay. I was looking for the platform today in the morning, as maybe I can buy this old one, BMW 545, still V8 engine. Whoa. Really, I was looking for that, but because I don't want to have, this 1.1 engine in my future car.
Okay. Good.
But coming to the digitalization is very important, especially that in the place where we are, at the part of Central Eastern Europe. Follow the digitalization. We must go with the regulations, especially related to customs. This is still some area which are not tidy up here, and this must be changed, because all these platforms who are using the air freight, like Alibaba or Amazon, will be flying to the places in Europe, very well prepared by the customs, which is also digital world in Western Europe, not here. I mean, we, as a group of countries, we treat customs like a single package, and always inspectors want to go inside and secure $20 per package. They refuse all these incomes and the benefits which would come if they somehow the value ignore by several packages, but they will have hundreds of thousands every day. Yeah. So digitalization is absolutely important. We must go follow. Probably there is a different way to be higher and lower, but I would like to see, from the airline perspective, the world of our group of countries, which will be prepared more wide open, up to regulators, but up to the bone, because I'm very happy and thank you very much for the invitation for this panel, because we have people that we are dealing with. Normally, when I participate in a lot of conventions like this, we are talking between ourselves only. And you know that the public is not representing the people who really want to change something, or they are partners to the discussion, but we are talking about our own world. It is wrong. I think that digitalization, sooner or later, must have an impact for the rules of the countries, and get the benefits much more wide open than only the communication between the customer and airline, land transport provider or ocean.
Okay.
Thank you. That's all from
Thank
my
you.
side.
Yes. Lukáš, where do you see the future? I mean, I'm always intrigued by DKV. For me, is one of the sleeping giants, because you have this app inside every trucker's pocket, more or less, and you know, there is visibility requirements, there is requirements on proof of delivery, there's all kinds of stuff. And where do you see the next 2 years? What's coming?
You know, when there's many things we could think about, we could dream about, and it could be a big data usage. Of course, we have so many transactions, so many things we can analyze and provide some output of that. We could speak about going to cloud, but I would like to go a bit to the ground and speak about what should change in the next 2-3 years. Again, small carriers, XSS companies, should start to use the tools, digital tools, and tools providing anything green in next 2-3 years. That's it. Already existing digital tools should be used, and that's fully enough to really move forward.
Okay.
I give you an example. The most used way of communication between driver and the dispatcher is still the mobile phone, nothing else. Because imagine pilot calling, where should I go, what should I pick up there? So, I mean, that's a completely different world. So digitalization in these terms will completely help to carriers to save the cost, to simply improve the efficiency. It means also improve in the green ideas.
Okay.
That's it.
So very efficiency focused still. I think that's also there is still so much room to improve on the efficiency side. Huh? Zvi, what's your take on the next 2 years?
Well, for us, it's about bringing the platforms together. So we're FreightOS.com, which is allowing shippers to book with forwarders, and of course we still need to grow that a lot. And we have WebCargo, which is helping the forwarders to book with carriers, and we still need to grow that a lot, especially on the ocean side. It's still just starting. But the big vision for us is to tie it together. We already have some pilots where the freight forwarder can instantly receive a booking on their website from a shipper, and at the same second book it with a carrier. So then the two platforms are taken together, and the shipper books with the forwarder, and within 1 second they get confirmation which flight it's booked on or which ship it's booked on. So that's the next generation for us.
Okay, so that the forwarder more or less has his kind of we called it in another discussion, we called it the raid kitchen, more or less, where he cooks his meal based on what comes in and based on what goes out, and is able to manage his product. Huh? Okay. Roman, some last words on where you think what will be important?
Follow from the ways also.
Yes.
This idea. So for us, if you ask this question, maybe our research and development center would be better, which is quite unusual for logistic provider to have own research and development center with own IT, more than 500 people who are working only exclusively our employees. I am smiling sometimes to search for these James Bond tools which will come. Today we are smiling to see the old one, touching phones, we use it everyone now. 5 years ago, I would say 3D printing is the great story because you can reduce your stock in the warehouse, reduce your costs. Then if you need some spare parts, 20 years old, you can prepare by 3D printer. Seems it's not idea which is so strongly implemented. It's existing in laboratory, but not in daily use. But as we spoke about, and to see the market around us, capacity problems, labor force shortage. We have to go more to automatization, which will be based on the digital platforms. So not only interaction between buying, selling relation, but also producing. Everybody expects lower cost, faster, more, cheaper, and the human being has some limits also. We see also the cost now after COVID time, probably inflation will rise up, personal cost will come, limited sources available on the market, in transport. The drivers are the big limited factors now in Europe, and I think not only Europe, United States as well, and so on. So this kind of the autonomous system, data processing, which are only based for the next step, which I think most clever has to define like me, and I will be just the user and try to implement to our customer that everybody can even understand it, and not only to generate the data.
And also to take the people along with it. I mean, these transitions are still the toughest part of it. So I think the technology is there and ready. It's just about getting it into the organization.
And what could be challenging, I think, legislation, because this digital world, it's developing much more faster, like the legislation is able to follow up, and then could be also limiting factor.
Good. Okay, thank you very much. I think that's a nice way of closing it. And when I look at the counter, we're almost landing on time, so I won't get blamed by Christina for having pushed it too long. I would like to thank the audience for your time and for your attention, and I would, of course, like to thank our panelists for their time and for their exciting insights that they shared with us today. Thank you very much.